1777. The British Empire, disciplined, rich, and vast, marched south from Canada to crush a rebellion that barely called itself an army. But what followed wasn't just a defeat. It was a collapse of strategy, of ego, of empire. 4 fatal decisions by General Gentleman Johnny Burgoyne would unravel the greatest military power on earth. And at the heart of it stood 2 Americans, one cautious and political, the other furious and brilliant, Horatio Gates and Benedict Arnold. Britain had every reason to be confident. Its navy ruled the seas, its army was professional and feared from India to the Caribbean. The American rebellion looked small and temporary, an inconvenience to be cleaned up. Yet in 1777, Britain faced a problem no empire could solve: distance. Every musket, message, and loaf of bread had to cross an ocean. London planned war with a ruler and compass. The colonies fought with trees, rivers, and time. Saratoga would expose the difference between strategy on paper and survival on the ground. Burgoyne's plan looked flawless on paper. His force would move south from Quebec. A second army under St. Leger would descend from the Mohawk Valley. General Howe from New York City would march north. 3 armies converging at Albany, splitting rebellious New England from the rest. But the plan died in committee. Orders were vague, communication hopeless, and egos enormous. Burgoyne marched alone, blind to the fact his allies weren't coming. The confusion in London bordered on comedy. Orders written in winter didn't reach commanders until midsummer, long after circumstances had changed. General Howe in New York believed he was to strike Philadelphia. Burgoyne believed Howe would march north to meet him. No one actually told them how their armies were supposed to connect. It was an empire at war with itself, run by letters that took 6 weeks to arrive. As one British officer put it, "We are divided by 3,000 miles of ocean and 1,000 miles of arrogance." Meanwhile, America's own command was divided. Gates, the cautious politician general, clashed with his fiery subordinate Benedict Arnold, a soldier of raw instinct and impossible pride. The Americans at Fort Ticonderoga knew they couldn't hold forever. Their walls were outdated, their powder damp, but they hoped to delay Burgoyne long enough for reinforcements to form further south. When British cannon appeared on the surrounding heights, St. Clair's men slipped away in the night, saving most of the army, if not the fort itself. For Burgoyne, it was intoxicating, a bloodless victory that convinced him their rebellion was already collapsing. For the Americans, it was a retreat that taught them the value of fighting on their own terms. When Fort Ticonderoga fell, Burgoyne believed victory inevitable. He chased the retreating Americans through Hubbardton and Skenesborough, capturing supplies and cannon. But it came at a brutal cost. His men were exhausted, dragging artillery through the wilderness. He'd won a skirmish and lost his tempo. That overconfidence was the first crack in the Empire's armor. At Skenesborough, Burgoyne faced a choice: sail swiftly down Lake George or march overland through wilderness. He chose the land route. General Philip Schuyler made sure it was misery. Bridges burned, trees felled, roads flooded into swamps. The British Army, 9,000 strong, crawled 1 mile per day, building roads as they marched. Supplies dwindled, morale collapsed, and deep in the woods, the forest swallowed the empire whole. Soldiers described the march as a nightmare without end. Oxen sank to their bellies in mud. Men spent entire days repairing a single bridge only to find the next one gone. Mosquitoes swarmed, rain turned muskets useless, and rations spoiled in the humidity. Burgoyne's personal baggage train, 30 wagons of wine, fine china, and furniture, still trudged along behind him, a symbol of how little he understood the land he was crossing. The wilderness didn't need to defeat him. It simply waited. By August, Burgoyne's grand army was starving. Horses dropped in their traces, soldiers boiled leather to chew it. Loyalist guides promised supplies and sympathizers in the hills of Vermont. Burgoyne believed them and dispatched his German dragoons eastward, expecting gratitude, finding fury instead. The raid wasn't just a tactical mistake, it was a moral one. Each burned barn, Each civilian casualty turned local farmers into soldiers overnight. Bennington was less a battle than an uprising that happened to meet an army. Desperate for food and horses, Burgoyne sent 800 troops east toward Bennington. They expected loyalists and found New England farmers under John Stark. At dawn, the militia swarmed. The British line broke. When the smoke cleared, Burgoyne had lost nearly 1,000 men. No food, no horses, no hope. His native allies deserted, scouts vanished, and his army was blind in enemy country. Every mile south was now a step deeper into a trap. Still, Burgoyne refused to retreat. To him, turning back meant dishonor, and perhaps disgrace in London. Pride can march faster than common sense. He convinced himself that Howe would appear any day from the south, that his army's suffering would soon be redeemed by triumph. But the letters from New York never came. The wilderness had swallowed them too. While Burgoyne stumbled forward, the Americans tore themselves apart. Inside the camp at Bemis Heights, Gates and Arnold were locked in a feud. Arnold wanted to strike. Gates refused. At Freeman's farm, Arnold's division stopped the British cold, but Gates's report to Congress never mentioned his name. Arnold exploded, storming into Gates's tent, shouting accusations of cowardice and betrayal. Gates dismissed him, saying, "You are of little consequence to the army." He stripped Arnold of his command and of his pride. North of the Hudson, Horatio Gates had finally replaced Philip Schuyler as commander. Gates brought order and supplies, but also politics. His camp buzzed with ambition. Officers whispered that Gates might one day replace George Washington himself. Beneath the slogans of liberty, there were rivalries as sharp as any bayonet. And in that tense atmosphere, one man, Benedict Arnold, found both his purpose and his undoing. Despite disaster after disaster, Burgoyne crossed the Hudson River in September. By doing so, he sealed his fate, cutting off retreat to Canada. Ahead lay Gates's fortified army, behind only wilderness and hunger. For 3 agonizing weeks, the British camped in misery. Half rations, horses slaughtered for food. Burgoyne still hoped for relief that would never come. The British army now lived among the ruins of its own confidence. Campfires burned with furniture scavenged from nearby farms. Men traded buttons for bread. Some diaries speak of discipline collapsing quietly, soldiers stealing from each other, officers weeping in their tents. Burgoyne tried to stage concerts and dinners to keep morale alive, as if etiquette could replace rations. It was theater in a graveyard. October 7th, 1777. The British attacked the American left. At first it holds, then cracks. Burgoyne's best field commander, Simon Fraser, rides to rally Freeman. An American rifleman, Timothy Murphy, climbs a tree and fires. Fraser falls, mortally wounded, the backbone of the British line gone. The army wavers. And in a tent behind the lines, Benedict Arnold hears the cannon and can't stand it. Defying orders, he mounts his horse and charges into battle. No rank, no command, just fury. He rides through smoke and chaos, rallies collapsing regiments, and leads a furious assault that breaks the British line. A musket ball shatters his leg, but the day is won. Arnold, the man stripped of command, saves the revolution. When Arnold fell, his men carried him from the field, his leg shattered and his horse dead beneath him. Witnesses said he raged more at being denied further fighting than at the wound itself. Somewhere in that moment, a hero began to fracture, his loyalty bleeding out with the painkillers and praise that never came. The field was victory. The aftermath was prophecy. Burgoyne's council of war was somber, ammunition nearly gone, supplies exhausted, and no hope of reinforcement. Officers debated honor versus annihilation. Burgoyne chose surrender, dignified, ceremonial, almost theatrical. His troops marched out with drums playing and colors cased, watched by farmers who only months earlier had been civilians with muskets. An empire bowed to an idea. 10 days later, Burgoyne surrendered his entire army. More than 5,000 British soldiers laid down their arms. It was the first time a major European power had surrendered to a colonial army. The news raced across the Atlantic. In Paris, Benjamin Franklin smiled. Saratoga was proof the impossible could happen. France joined the war. A rebellion became a world war. For France, Saratoga was proof that aiding the Americans wasn't a lost cause. French gold, guns, and ships began to flow west. Spain and the Dutch soon followed, turning what began as a colonial rebellion into a global struggle that reached the Caribbean, Africa, and India. The ripples from that one field near the Hudson River would stretch around the world. Benedict Arnold, hero of Saratoga, lay in bed with a shattered leg and a shattered pride. Gates basked in Congress's praise. But history isn't kind to either man. Arnold's bitterness curdled into betrayal. Gates's caution faded into mediocrity. And Burgoyne, the playwright general, returned to London to explain how pride and poor judgment lost an empire. History rarely delivers justice cleanly. Gates wrote self-congratulatory letters that would later haunt him at Camden, where his army broke and ran. Arnold limped through the rest of the war, nursing his resentment until it curdled into betrayal. Burgoyne returned to England and the stage, writing plays no one much cared to see. Each man carried Saratoga in his own way: victory, humiliation, or scar. Saratoga wasn't just a battle. It was the moment the world turned upside down.